Hello and welcome to Making Tracks, which this week comes to you from Austria. In this program we shall be looking at some of the many unusual steam and electric centres which can be found in this beautiful country.
But let's start with an amazing tramway in Linz. It's one of the steepest adhesion railways in the world.
The Pöstlingberg is the house mountain of Linz on the Danube, and it's crowned by a church for pilgrims. It's always enjoyed great popularity with the local population as a place for an excursion. To make it easily accessible to all and sundry, a local engineer applied to the government in Vienna for a concession to build a narrow-gauge rack railway to the top of the Pöstlingberg mountain. This concession was granted in 1895. At this time, the Linz Tramway Company started to electrify its large system and was given permission to build this line, but it had to be completed within 1 year. The 2-kilometer-long line was opened to the public on the 28th of May, 1898. And it was not to be a rack railway after all, but the steepest adhesion railway in the world. The safety system used is an unusual rail with a special wedge-shaped or tapered head around which the brake can clamp the vehicle to the track. Because of the forceps brakes, it's necessary to have movable crossings at the points and also swiveling stock rails to allow the forceps brakes to clamp with an uninterrupted hold and anchor the vehicle to the rails when it's applied. The original vehicles, one of which Making Tracks used, were built in Graz and had two 20-horsepower motors on each axle. The line voltage is 600 volts DC. And later the motor power was upgraded to 27 horsepower per axle, which it still is. Without doubt, this line is remarkable in every sense of the word.
And back to Britain now for our regular feature on mainline steam workings. On Wednesday, 23rd of March 1994, Southern Class S15, number 828, ran from Didcot to Sheffield on what's become known as a positioning special. Occasionally, it's necessary to move locos and coaching stock to various destinations in preparation for the next rail tour. Rather than have these trains run empty, it was decided some time ago to offer seats to fare-paying passengers. Despite the trains usually running on weekdays, they're still very well patronised. The Class S15 was a development of the famous N15 King Arthur class locomotive. and designed for mixed traffic work. Originally designed by Uri in 1920, number 828 was one of a later batch, built for the Southern Railway under the supervision of Mariazell, who introduced some modifications to the original design. Number 828 is a relative newcomer to the mainline circuit and has proved to be a popular and reliable machine. However, there were some obvious problems encountered during the stop at Sheffield. The departure from Sheffield produced a violent and spectacular bout of slipping, with sparks coming from the rear driving wheels, before finally regaining control. As number 828 made its way to Derby, we returned to Austria.
In the northeast of Vienna, one of the big wartime engine sheds, together with a complete repair shop, has been turned into a museum. It houses the biggest single collection of Austrian and Austro-Hungarian engines, some of them from the post-World War I era.
Gerhard Prominzer, you are the chef of the Railway Museum at Strasshof. What unusual engines have you got here?
Yes, we've got a lot of unusual engines. There are, for example, two recline engines from the Styrian Erzberg, and there is the oldest engine which is still running in Austria, and I think in Europe. It is called Lycaon, and it was built in 1852.
You rebuild the engines here, or would you send them away?
Yes, we are rebuilding our engines by ourselves, and also give them away if we have not enough capacity to restore all of these engines.
How many engines do you have altogether here?
About 30 pieces at the moment.
And how's the situation as far as running a place like this is concerned? Is it easy? Is it difficult? Tell me.
Yes, it takes a lot of money and a lot of time to get an engine running, but we have got a lot of volunteers which are helping us, and so it is possible to get every second year or third year an engine ready.
Were you a professional railwayman yourself?
I'm not a railwayman. I was a private electrician, and became to this museum some years ago.
At the time of our visit, an unusual little animal was in steam. The little luggage-carrying locomotive called the steam rail motor, in German Dampftriebwagen, or DT for short. It didn't take long for the locals to use the letters DT as Dorftrottel, or village idiot, and that name has stuck ever since. DT1 was under-designed. The boiler was too small, steam consumption too high, and the performance as a locomotive dismal. a headwind could drop its speed by 2 to 3 kph. Add to this the management's attitude. If it runs, hang a trailer behind it, and you have a recipe for disaster. Despite these problems, the little loco was developed. During the war, some were even sold to Slovakia, then an independent republic. The performance was then so much improved that they were suitable for very light trains. These DTs were unloved but acceptable, so soon after the war, most of them were scrapped. Although this engine represents an engineering failure and has no major importance for the Austrian railways, it has nevertheless a particular place in history and therefore has been rescued.
Austria has many exciting railways, but this narrow-gauge Mariazell Bahn packs quite some surprises.
This fascinating 760mm gauge line was completed in 1907 and electrified in 1911. It was the first line in Austria to use electric locomotives, and these can still be seen in use today. Built by Siemens Schuckert and Krauss of Linz, each bogie has a single traction motor delivering 300 horsepower, which drives the wheels through connecting rods. Although recently fitted with new bodies, they are electrically and mechanically as originally delivered. The line is 84 kilometers in length and starts from St. Pölten, running through rather flat lands along the valley of the river Pielach until it reaches Obergrafendorf. There's a branch line here running to the agricultural community of Dresden. This non-electrified line is operated by diesels, looking very similar in appearance to the electric locomotives. Obergrafendorf has a small half-roundhouse, which stables the only remaining MH6 steam locomotive. Originally built for the line, the locomotive was soon superfluous to requirements due to electrification, and subsequently served on the Heidenreichstein line near the Czech border. The loco has been completely stripped down and restored by a small group of professional railwaymen who donated all their spare time to this task.
Erich Tönicke, this engine is beautiful. It looks brand new. How old is it really?
The engine was built in 1908 in Linz an der Donau, Austria.
And when it came here, it was rather sad, wasn't it?
We have worked 4 years, and in the 4 years we have worked 11,000 hours.
How many of you have worked on that engine?
5 or 6 peoples.
The engine is different. I've seen a picture of this engine before, and it had red frames and red wheels.
No, this engine is an Austrian engine. It was built in Austria, and she is in Austria, and we have the old Austrian colors, black and steel. Yes, it's Austrian engine.
From Obergrafendorf, the main line continues to Mariazell and becomes a genuine mountain railway. It was built to a wide loading gauge as far as Laubenbach-Mühle, allowing standard gauge vehicles to be carried on transporter trucks. Although freight workings have declined recently, there's been a large increase in tourist traffic, particularly in the winter when the roads become difficult. Therefore, the line has an excellent future. The little-used line to Grayston would be ideal for running the newly restored steam loco on special workings, and should attract even more visitors to this delightful railway. South Africa continues to be a steam photographer's paradise, with spectacular scenery, superb natural lighting conditions, and a wealth of preserved steam locomotives. Well, not surprisingly, we'll be featuring this country throughout the series, and we begin by looking at one of the impressive branch lines to be found here.
Way up in the mountains, just south of Lesotho, is a superb line running to Barclay East. The line is of standard South African 3-foot 6 gauge and was worked by a diminutive G.B. Garrett's, the smallest in service on this gauge. Number 2166 was built by Bear Peacock in 1921, and a further 6 entered service 3 years later. All were scrapped except 2166, which was preserved as a static exhibit outside Aliwal North Station until 1991, when the Transnet Museum restored this loco to working order. Thus, it was possible to see authentic motive power working this line in 1992. The line is remarkable in having a series of 8 reverses, allowing ascents to be made, avoiding costly civil engineering works. In fact, a tunnel was constructed on an original route, but the scheme was abandoned soon afterwards in favor of the less expensive reverses. The original line would certainly have been a spectacular affair, for the scenery is most impressive. The train is dwarfed by its surroundings as it approaches the 5th reverse. The line was opened in stages from 1911 to 1915 between Lady Grey and New England, but the section to Berkeley East was only completed in 1930. The normal traffic only consists of 2 freight trains a week, and so the future of the line is by no means certain, although it should see steam hauled specials for some time to come. will be featuring the Maclear branch in a future program. This is another spectacular branch line in South Africa, so here's a foretaste of what's to come.
Well, that's all from Austria and Making Tracks. Our next program will also be featuring another spectacular line. This time it'll be in Argentina.
And we'll also be travelling to Java in the former Dutch East Indies, where steam is still regularly used in almost 40 sugar mills.
We shall be looking at steam on British rail, and our program will come from what is probably known as Britain's most famous preserved line, the Severn Valley Railway. So until then, goodbye.
Goodbye.
Those tracks will be followed and